As promised, today I'm bringing you a full hour of gossip, so go grab your chips and enjoy this video while you laugh at other people's misfortunes. One time when I was in school, I slammed really hard into a pole because I was waving like an idiot at my mom since she had come to pick me up.
But the worst part wasn't the hit. It was that the girl I liked was standing right in front of me.
And instead of helping me, she burst out laughing so loud that even the birds got scared.
And there I was, sprawled out on the ground with the pole half bent, and I said, "Relax everyone, I train with Goku." And since that day, they nicknamed me Ironhead. But the worst part is, the pole is still crooked. One time I realized that my dad kills cockroaches with his bare hands. And he doesn't care, it doesn't even gross him out. Because I used to be scared of and grossed out by cockroaches. And I still am today. But one day, when I was 7 years old, I was in my room watching a movie. And a damn cockroach showed up. And I screamed, "Dad, And my dad comes in, sees the cockroach on the wall and says, "Picho!" Bam! And he smacks the wall so hard that the cockroach just disappeared. And then I see him wipe his hand on his pants. And I say, "Aren't you going to wash your hands, Dad?" And he says, "No." The macho man. Once, when I was 9 years old, I scammed myself because I wanted to go to a really expensive concert. But my mom didn't want to buy me the tickets because she said we were broke. So I activated my 007 plan and searched on Google for free VIP tickets. And I found a magical page that said I could print them. I was so excited. I printed 10 tickets. I even invited friends. But on the day of the event, we walked in like celebrities. And at the entrance, the guard said, "This is a joke, right?" In the end, they kicked us out. And we had to listen to the concert from outside. Once when the Wolverine and Deadpool movie came out, my cousins blew $2 grand just on tickets. Because on the day of the show, they were really excited. But they forgot they were just kids. And they showed up all happy. But the guy at the theater said, "Let me see your IDs, kids." And they were like, "Is this for real?" So they didn't let them in, and that's that. The 28 kids stayed there, crying outside the theater. And my girlfriend and I, we did get in. But we felt bad for my cousins. So we made a video call to them so they could see a little bit. Until a worker caught us and kicked us out too. Subscribe if you've ever been left outside the theater. One time, my ape of a brother cut the Xbox controller cable with pliers, out of anger, and in the end he regretted it and started crying, because we were playing Halo Reach 1 vs 1, but since I was beating him like 30-1, so he got mad, and for being a sore loser, he grabbed my dad's pliers, and he cut my controller cable, which was connected to the console. So I gave him like 69 knocks on the head for being dumb, but then later he comes and says, "Dude, let's go buy another controller cable, I'm bored now, and I have no one to play with." Honestly, I got stuck with a crazy ass brother.
Who the hell cares, you piece of fucking worthless shit bastard asshole?
One time, when I scraped my knee from racing bikes with Panza, I got home bleeding a lot, and I put on my pants without thinking about the tragedy I was about to create. But hours later, when I tried to take them off, the scab was already stuck to the pants, like we were best friends. So I tried to pull it off slowly, and I felt such horrible pain that I screamed like I was being baptized with boiling water. Then my mom came in worried, and without asking anything, she ripped it off in one go. That day, my life passed by in slow motion, and the scab stayed stuck to the pants like a war trophy. One time, when I was in middle school, my classroom almost got shut down because of a bomb sandwich. My mom had Pat McGuan wrapped in aluminum foil, and Panza, to scare the school monitor, shouted, "He's got a bomb!" So the poor school monitor came running in, everyone raised their hands, and I got nervous. Instead of explaining, I said, "It won't explode unless you squish it," because it was an egg, onion, and garlic sandwich that smelled terrible. Then they called the principal, opened the foil with a ruler like in a movie, and the smell came out. The principal said, "This really is a biological weapon." Since that day, they never checked my breakfast again, just in case it was radioactive. One time, when I was 10 years old, I thought I was going to have infinite money because I wanted to buy some things online. But my mom wouldn't let me, and she wouldn't lend me her card because according to her, they'd steal all her money. So I came up with a 1111 IQ idea. What I did was search the internet for debit cards with 100,000 pesos. Then I went to the images section and saw a ton of cards. And I said, hell yeah, I'm rich! But then, when I tried to use the card in the store, I couldn't, and I realized they were just sample cards that didn't work and weren't real. I don't think this guy is very smart. One time, they played a prank on my Aunt Chencha, telling her there was an evil spirit in her house. She's very Catholic, but in the end, it was all a lie, because there was a Christian guy.
He was looking for a place to rent and set up a church. So when he entered my aunt's house, he said, "Oh, shh, there's something strange here." And my Aunt Chencha called out to the man from the kitchen, "What's wrong, sir? What do you feel?"
"What do you feel, sir?" And the man said there was a restless soul there. But my aunt was already scared out of her wits, so she took out her Bible and started to pray. But in the end, it turned out it was all a lie. And it was just a trick by the man to get her to lower the rent for the place.
One time, my cousin Sardina turned a jello from the church cafeteria into paranormal evidence that left everyone scared to death. He stuck a label on it that said, "Do not eat, moves by itself," to save it while he went to get a spoon. But the catechism teacher saw it shaking on the table and screamed, "That thing has a spirit in it!" Then everyone gathered around like they were on Discovery Channel. Panza threw holy water on it from his thermos, and the jello started to slide even more. So they swore it was trying to escape, until my grandma Chona came, grabbed it with one hand, ate it, and said, "Yeah, it was haunted. Now I've been possessed by a craving." One time my mom woke me up to go to the bathroom at 3 in the morning because if she didn't, I would pee the bed and leave yellow stains on the mattress. And she said to me, "Come on, sweetie, get up so you can go to the bathroom, little bedwetter." So I got up, but when I got up, I was still asleep and thought I was already in the bathroom. So I pulled down my shorts and started peeing right in front of my mom. My mom's screams woke me up and I realized what I was doing. But then I felt like sneezing and I lost control of my stream and by accident, I peed on my mom. Poor thing, she never woke me up again. Now she sends my dad. One time, my girlfriend literally almost scared me to death with a little prank she pulled on me. Because one day, I had the hiccups and I was already fed up with it. All day long. So there's this silly belief that if you scare someone, their hiccups will go away instantly. So my girlfriend comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And I just froze and turned pale as a ghost. And I felt like I had a mini heart attack. So I started feeling bad. But then she told me it was just a joke. That she did it to get rid of my hiccups. But it didn't work. On the contrary, I almost ended up in the hospital right then.
That's when he felt true terror. One time, my family and I saw a drunk guy lying on the sidewalk.
And I said, "Man, poor guy. Let's help him out with 50 pesos so he can get some tacos." So I walked up to him and left the bill. But instead of thanking us for giving him money, he said, "Get out of here."
And we were kind of shocked. But honestly, we just laughed. Instead of getting mad, we gave him another 20 pesos. I hope he realized and took it, because if not, we just wasted it for nothing. But honestly, I don't really care.
One time, when I was at the beach, I made homemade tamarind in the sea. Because at that beach, there was a restaurant called Fishy's Place that charged 100 pesos to use the bathroom. So I said, "Nah, these guys are crazy. I'd rather do it in the sea." And that's what I did. But once I was in the water,
I didn't realize that tamarinds float in the water. And some people were looking at me weird because I was just standing still in one spot. But then, some kid saw something brown floating in the water. And I think he thought it was a dead fish because he grabbed it with his hand. But then he looked at it closely and realized it was a jumbo tamarind. And I got out of there swimming, running and flying to the shore so they wouldn't blame me. Let's get out of here, suckers!
one time, when I was a kid, I used to have thoughts like, if you don't touch that tree, a truck, that was your mom. And I had to go and touch the tree because I didn't want anything to happen to my mom. And one day I told my mom, "Hey mom, I saved you from being..." And she said, "Oh Jesus, when?" And then I told her about my thoughts. And she ended up taking me to a psychologist. One time when I was on vacation, there was a swim-up bar, and I splashed water in a waiter's face. He got really mad because I had been calling him for a while saying, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I have a glass of chocolate milk?" But I repeated it like 300 times and he kept ignoring me. And the guy would only serve the skinny girls in bikinis because there was also an overweight lady next to me who had been asking for a Coke for hours, and he wouldn't serve her either. So since he kept ignoring me, I grabbed a little water from the pool and said, "Hey!" and splashed water in his face. And he got really angry and told me, "This better be the last time you do that, or else I'll jump in the pool and kick you." But I was only 12 years old. You did the right thing. One time when I was a kid, my computer went crazy and a message appeared on the screen that said, "Weather alert." And I thought, that's it, a meteorite. And today, my bloodline ends. But I didn't stay quiet. I opened all the family groups. I sent dramatic voice messages, almost crying like in a disaster movie. So my Aunt Martha was already packing the beans, and my little cousin Tizok. He started digging a hole in the yard. And in the end, after all the chaos I caused, my uncle explained that it was just a weather alert because it was going to rain. And my little cousin Tizok ended up buried in the hole because nobody remembered to get him out. One time, my girlfriend said the dumbest thing in the world, and I thought she had completely lost her mind because we were in the car on her street. Then we saw a kitten. It was small but already growing up. So I rolled down the driver's window and yelled, "Micho! What's up, Micho? How are you?" But then since there was a car behind us, we left. My girlfriend was with me, and after 3 seconds she asks, "What did he say to you?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what did he say? It's a cat." And she just stayed like that, like, "That's true." One time, I was banned from entering the science museum for setting off the evacuation alarm for the whole building because my brother dared me to press a huge red button that said, "Do not touch." And I was so sure I told him, "It's just for show, dude. It doesn't even work." And I pressed it. Then suddenly sirens started blaring, red lights came on, and the smoke came out of the vents. But the worst part was that they started evacuating 300 people who were inside. And I was freaking out trying to get out quickly until a guard grabbed me by the arm and said, "It was you, kid, dumbass. You were caught on camera." And they kicked me out with my dad, who had to pay a 5,000 peso fine. One time when I was a kid, I almost became a human popsicle because in my room there was an AC so powerful it could cool Antarctica and the North Pole at the same time. And on top of that, I used to wet the bed, and my dad always set the AC to turn off after 3 hours. But one day he forgot to set it and left it at 16 degrees when I always left it at 25. And around 3 in the morning, I went to my parents' room all wet and freezing. And I said to my dad, Dad, I'm really cold." And in the end, my dad got scared because he thought I was a popsicle with legs. One time, when I was 11 years old, I was invited to a party because it was the birthday of my friend Panza. And when it was time for the piñata, we all started taking turns hitting it. But then, Panza's uncle said, "I'll go, kids." And with the first hit he gave it, he knocked it down, and the piñata fell to the ground with all its candy. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw that my dad was already in the car because he had come to pick me up. So I grabbed the piñata and ran to him, telling him, start the car, I have candy for a month." But my dad didn't start the car and made me return the piñata. And Panza never invited me to his party again. Let's go, bitches! One time, my dad fell in the bathroom because he was jumping around. After he finishes showering, he jumps up and down, supposedly to dry off the water. But his bathroom floor is slipperier than butter. So he said that when he hit his head really hard on the floor, she even saw stars. He started checking if he remembered his name and the multiplication tables. And he said he did remember. But one day, I also hit my head and started saying my name and the multiplication tables. But when I tried to say the tables, I didn't know them. Then I remembered that I never knew the tables anyway, whether I hit my head or not. One time at the school fair, my buddy Calaca almost scared everyone to death because he shouted, "The clown piñata is bleeding!" He saw some red liquid. It was dripping from the head of the giant clown, and nobody knew where it was coming from. So everyone was horrified, and the principal shouted, "Nobody touch anything! Someone wants to sabotage the fair!"
Next door, there was another school that always competed with ours to be the best, and their principal hated us. Out of nowhere, the PE teacher grabbed some sticks in case we had to fight. Then, Don Chuchui, the janitor, showed up. He climbed up with a ladder and checked the clown's head.
And he pulled out a burst bag of chamoy. And Panzas just muttered, "That was my secret stash." From that day on, they called him the Piñata Killer.
One time, when we were at my little cousin Tisok's house, my aunt brought the biggest pizza I had ever seen in my life. She said, "Nobody touch it until everyone gets here." But me, starving like a pig, thought, "One slice, just a little slice, nobody will notice." So I opened the box and grabbed the biggest one. And right then, my aunt walks in and stares at me like a soap opera villain. I got so scared that I dropped the pizza face down on the floor. But the worst part was that my aunt's hysterical screams were so epic that even the neighbors called the police. Since that day, my aunt locks up the pizza, and people only learn the hard way. One time, my mom forced me to order a pizza because according to her, it was so I could become more independent. But I didn't want to, so I had to watch motivational videos to get the courage. And when the time came and I was ready, I called the pizzeria, sweating and shaking. And I said, "Can I have a pepperoni hamburger?" Man, I was so embarrassed that I hung up. I ended up making myself a ham sandwich. In the end, there was no pizza. One time, my parents and I went to the beach, and I realized that men do nothing but stupid things in the sand. I started watching what the women were doing, and I saw that they took pictures, sunbathed, took a dip at the edge of the beach. In general, they relaxed. But then I looked at what the men were doing, and it was the complete opposite. We buried ourselves in the sand, threw sand in each other's faces, and instead of staying at the shore, we went out into the deep, looking for trouble, or hoping a barracuda would show up and give us a little kiss on our body with its big teeth. One time, my buddy Moctezuma shouted, "Open the windows!" Because he thought of putting a rotisserie chicken from the supermarket in the oven to give it professional crispiness, and he left it there for 5 hours on grill mode, as if he were forging Excalibur. But when we opened the oven, a black cloud came out that looked like some level 5300 evil spirit. And my house looked like Popocatépetl doing cosplay. Then my uncle Don Pulgon arrived with a bucket. Sardina pulled out a fire extinguisher that didn't even work anymore. And Barrilito was recording everything for TikTok, shouting #apocalyptic chicken. And in the end, the chicken survived, turning to volcanic stone. And since that day, Moctezuma is forbidden from touching the kitchen. One time, when I was in middle school, a siren went off that nobody recognized, and the principal shouted, "But someone pressed the red one!" And we all went into World War mode. And Sock was climbing on the fan. Panza was using notebooks as a shield. And I was praying because I thought it was a zombie attack. I watched a lot of The Walking Dead. But suddenly, all the teachers showed up with totally confused faces. Then the prefect said, "Who activated that?" And in the end, it was a first grader who pressed a button because it was shiny. And that day, the school changed its name. Now it's called Apocalypse Institute. Oh my god, Lord save me. One time at Christmas, my family put up a giant inflatable reindeer outside the house, like a North Pole mascot. But Tizok came over and said the reindeer was hackable. So the kid hooked up an old remote control he found and boom! The reindeer started spinning like a military helicopter. It knocked over the neighborhood nativity scene, dragged the tree, and took down a neighbor dressed as Santa who was selling buñuelos. Everyone was screaming, lights were flying, and Panza was recording everything like a war reporter. And from that day on, that decoration was named the Christmas Apache Reindeer. One time, when I was 5 years old and in kindergarten, I decided to try the classroom glue because I thought it tasted like vanilla. And when no one was looking, I gave it a lick. And then another. And then another. And it tasted like a heavenly treat to me. Until the teacher caught me and yelled at me, "Kid, stop eating!" But it was already too late. I felt like Chef Cito from Ratatouille was cooking just for me. And I said, "No." She took me to the bathroom to clean me up and lectured me about not eating glue. I didn't care. When I returned to the classroom, I continued my culinary experience. One time during Halloween, I almost sent my little brother to meet God because I put on a scary mask and grabbed a dull knife. I went up to his room and when I appeared, he started screaming and threw himself back onto the bed, yelling, "No sir, please!" I had to take off the mask because the guy was really about to have a heart attack. But the worst part is that I was wearing the same clothes he had seen me in all day, and the fool didn't recognize me. In the end, he told on me and I got a beating. People only understand after getting their ass kicked. One time my grandma almost got arrested because of my aunt Pumpkin who has Down syndrome. My aunt heard desperate screams for help coming from the neighbor's house and she ran to knock on every door shouting, "They're killing Don Pancho!" Then the police cars arrived, surrounded the house and shouted through a megaphone, "Come out with your hands up!" And Don Pancho, he comes out in his torn underwear all scared and says, "What's going on? What's happening?" But when they checked his living room, they saw he was just watching The Conjuring 2 with the speakers at full volume. And my aunt, she ended up looking like a fool in front of 20 neighbors and 5 police cars. Then the commander told her, "Next time, ring the doorbell first." And they put my grandma on a list of bad parents for not keeping an eye on my aunt. One time, my mom, she took away my console for 3 months because I made my 8-year-old little brother cry with a really dumb joke. He had been building a castle in Minecraft for 6 months and I was tired of him showing off. So one day, I grabbed his tablet and changed the name of his world to My Castle. My epic castle to world deleted, in parentheses, erased. And when he came back from school, he screamed, "No! My castle." And he started crying really badly, in front of my parents. Then my grandmother said to me, "What did you do to the boy?" And I told her, "Nothing, Grandma, I didn't do anything." But my brother kept crying. And when I showed him that the word was still there and that I had only changed the name, my mom said, "I don't care, you're grounded. You made him suffer on purpose." One time, I poured water on some cereal and ruined it because my mom used to keep water in milk jugs since that's how she made ice. But she forgot to put them in the freezer. And one day, I was really hungry and I served myself cereal in a cup. So I go to the fridge, grab what was supposed to be milk and pour it on the cereal. But when I see what I'm pouring, I realize it's transparent, not white. And I yell to my mom, "Mom, I think the milk turned invisible." And in the end, it turned out to be water and my cereal was ruined. The thoughts in my head are a mystery. One time, when I was 9 years old, we were in the classroom and my friend Panza had a man named Chepe fall on top of him. Chepe weighed about 160 kilos. The big guy was fixing the classroom air conditioner. So at one point, the ladder Chepe was standing on lost a screw and I clearly saw in 8K how the janitor fell right on top of Panza, who was standing near a table, and pinned him against the table. Poor Panza ended up lying on the floor doing this. And in the end, Mr. Chepe gets up like nothing happened and says, "Teacher, I think I crushed the kid. Good thing he's chubby like me." Call the police. They're killing me! One time when my cousin Chuchito had a birthday, they threw him a party there in the neighborhood. But everything got ruined because in the end, about 10 drunks crashed the party. All because of my uncle Rubenchas. And then the police had to come because Chuchito had his Buzz Lightyear themed 10th birthday party. But when we were about to cut the cake, my uncle Rubenchas said, "I'm going to invite some buddies, they're chill." But his buddies were all the drunks from the neighborhood. And once they arrived, one of the drunks in the middle of the chaos ended up on top of the cake. Another one tried to take the piñata for his kid, and others were peeing on people. So in the end, they had to call the cops to get them out, and poor Chuchito's party was ruined. One time, I got in trouble with my mom because of Clash Royale, and something really dumb ended up happening. I was in a frantic match in the living room, just about to take down the last tower to move up to Legendary Arena. But then my mom yells from the kitchen, "Manuel! Turn off the burner under the beans." They're burning? The thing is, if I got up, I'd lose the most important trophies of my life. And if I didn't go, the house would explode. Obviously, I chose the trophies. I won the match. I celebrated like crazy. But when I came to my senses, the kitchen was a cloud of black smoke, and the beans were nothing but charcoal. My mom came running with the broom in her hand, and I went from being the king of the arena to the king of the mob for 2 weeks, crying while I cleaned everything.
Once when I was 15 years old, one of my classmates almost got eaten by crocodiles because my whole class went to a park that had a lake with crocodiles for our natural science class. But when we got there, my classmate Cocodriling went ahead without the teacher's permission. Not knowing what was in the water, he dove right into the lake. When the teacher saw him, she yelled, "Julian, get out! There are crocodiles!" And Julian, all scared, swam out faster than his uncle ever could.
Luckily, there weren't any crocodiles in that area, because if there had been...
One time, teacher Carmelita caught me cheating on a test when I was in middle school. Then she told my parents, because I'm an idiot and I hadn't studied. I started writing all the answers on my arms, and that's the worst way to cheat. Then, I put on a sweater to cover my arms, but halfway through the test, the teacher saw I was acting suspicious. She said, "Manuelito, it's kind of hot in here, isn't it? Take off that sweater." And I was like, "No, teacher, it's really cold." She stared at me and said, "Take it off."
At that moment, I knew things would go downhill. She looked at my arms and just froze.
She knew it. I said, "Verta tus, teacher." Since she didn't have a car, I gave her a ride home in my parents' truck. In front of them, she says, "Manuel, Manuel." Did you have a cheat sheet? And I was in trouble as soon as I got home. People only understand after a beating. One time, my little brother Mojarrin gave my girlfriend a challenge to set off the alarms at the movie theater. And we almost got kicked out because my girlfriend kept saying, "One time, I set off the movie theater alarm by accident." So my brother says to her, "Let's see, I dare you to press that fire alarm." And my girlfriend goes, thinking that if she just lifted the cover over the button, nothing would happen and it wouldn't go off. She wasn't supposed to set it off until she pressed a button. But when she lifts the cover, it starts ringing. Woo! Woo! And all the people who were watching the movies left the theater. And a cinema manager had to come running to turn off the alarm because we didn't even know what to do. One time, I had a really weird friend who swore he knew when he was going to die. He even wrote it down on his calendar. "I die on March 13, 2013. And I told him, "Dude, not even God gives out those spoilers." Then the day came and he didn't go to school and nobody knew anything. So I turned pale, prayed the rosary and almost brought him flowers.
But just when I was about to say a few nice words, the fool sends a message to the WhatsApp group. "I came back from the dead in vacation mode, losers." He was a damn trolling genius.
One time, my uncle El Paisa almost drowned me in a public pool because he wanted to teach me how to swim in just one day using his revolutionary method, which was to throw me into the deep end and yell at me, "Swim or drown, kid!" I was 5 years old and had never been in a deep pool before, and my mom was yelling from the edge, "Brother, you're going to kill him!" But my uncle just said, "Come on, go! The survival instinct is the best teacher." So he throws me in, and I start swallowing water like crazy, flailing everywhere, thinking I was going to die. But out of nowhere, my body started to float and move on its own. I came out spitting chlorine and crying, but swimming. My uncle, super proud, tells everyone, "See? Pure pedagogy." And from that day on, they hired him to give lessons. And his motto is that fear teaches faster than patience. One time, my grandma Chona misheard a conversation of mine and swore I wanted to be an astronaut because she heard me say, "I'm going to take off really hard with this ship." But it was because I was playing Halo Reach. So she started blessing me every night, begging God that I wouldn't die at NASA. And days went by and I didn't understand.
I didn't understand why she was giving me astronaut breakfasts. Hard cookies, powdered milk. She even bought me a bike helmet painted silver with the NASA logo. But the last straw was when she invited Tizak and Alpanzas to my space farewell party on the rooftop. But the worst part was that the farewell was 10 giant firecrackers that exploded so loud I went flying. And ever since then, my grandma says NASA has banned me for life.
One time, 2 weeks ago, I felt like I had entered the back rooms because of something crazy that happened to me. I had gone to Plaza de la Tecnologia because I really wanted to buy a console, but I ended up in something that seemed straight out of my worst nightmares. I went up to the top floor looking for the used game store. At first, everything was normal, but I walked a little further and realized there were no people anymore. All the stores were closed, the hallways were dark, and there was only a blinking sign that said, "Cell phones unlocked."
But to make things worse, I walked around twice and passed by the same phone case stand. Meanwhile, a strange buzzing sound played in the background. Honestly, it really freaked me out. I already felt like I'd entered the back room's swap meet version.
So I hurried straight to the stairs, but I couldn't find them because I was distracted. And honestly, I just wanted a little game, not to unlock a trauma. One time, I ended up with my face painted black right in the middle of class. And I almost got expelled because the teacher thought I was doing something racist. It all started because I was bored during a test. And I saw that my pen had liquid black ink. So being creative, I thought, what if I paint myself like Batman? I put ink on my fingers.
And I started smearing it on my forehead, then on my cheeks. But then, the teacher saw me and yelled, "What are you doing?" And I, all confident, said, "Teacher, I'm Batman."
Everyone in the classroom laughed, and the teacher thought I was joking and became hysterical. They sent me to the principal's office and made me wash my face in front of everyone. This happened when I was 9. I was at my friend Panza's birthday party and a disaster happened. There was a trampoline and we were all happily jumping until Panzas got the idea to jump from the roof of the house onto the trampoline. I told him, "That's not a good idea, man." And he said, "Relax, I lost 200 grams, I'm fit. What could happen?" But then he jumped and we all went flying. There was even a kid who landed in another house on top of a lady. But what surprises me the most is the strength of the trampoline. It didn't break, and Panzas got a few knocks on the head for being silly. Boys, is this Freddy Fazbear? Hoi hoi, one time my friend Cabra would fall over just from the wind when we played soccer, because every recess at school, we would spend our time playing soccer, but Cabra spent more time on the ground than actually playing. Sometimes I pass him the ball because he was alone, then look away, and when I looked back, Cabra was already on the ground and nobody had even touched him. One day we asked him, "Hey Cabra, what's going on with you? Why do you keep falling by yourself?" He didn't say a word, he just took off his shoe and showed us the reason. He had a bunion. Bigger than Everest itself. I got pizza here, cold. One time when I was at my grandma Chona's house, my cousin Tizok yelled that I was turning into a nahual because he found a tick stuck to my leg. And everyone went into horror movie mode. Then Macario lit candles. Panza started reciting the Chavo del Ocho prayer as if it were an exorcism. And even my grandma Chona tied me up with a sheet shouting, "Don't let the hairy demon come out." And I was already crying, because at any moment they could lock me up in a Pentagon lab. But in the end, when the supposed evil tick fell to the floor, it turned out to be just a simple dried bean. And that day my family almost died laughing. But I didn't find it funny at all. Not funny at all. One time, my uncle thought he was witnessing a miracle from God, and he even knelt before me because I was about 4 years old and Christmas was coming.
So they had set up the nativity scene under the stairs at my grandma's house. But I, being clumsy, went over and fell right into the straw of the already finished nativity scene.
Then there was a loud bang throughout the whole house. My uncle even said, "Who just got hurt?" But when he went to check the living room, he saw something moving in the nativity scene, and it was a little boy. But you couldn't see my face because the straw was covering it. So my uncle knelt down and started to pray. But then I took the straw off my face, and he saw me, and he screamed out of fright because he thought I was baby Jesus. But no, I was just the clumsy kid. Yeah, I know. A lot of straw. Once, I had a friend who was addicted to white powder. And no, I'm not talking about sugar. The guy was 15 years old. And he already looked like a villain from a narco-terrorist series. But it was all because his dad was a full-time criminal. They called him the monkey. But one day I told him, "Dude, that's enough. I'm taking you to the parish." And I took him to Father Alfonsito, where he got to the church, forced to go. He walked in like holy water was burning him. But the best part is that 7 days later, he wasn't addicted to powder anymore, but to pure incense. And now he's an altar boy. And when they ask him what he smokes, he answers, "Only the Holy Spirit, bro." Let me go. Once, when my friend Panza stayed over at my house, every Saturday we had a sacred ritual. As soon as we woke up, we would say to each other, "Good morning, little princess," because we were really traumatized with the movie White Chicks, and we used it as a meme. Everything was cool until one day my dad was passing by my room. He heard us and stopped at the door, looking traumatized.
And he was processing what he had just heard. He didn't say anything. He just slowly walked away.
But at night, late, he called me seriously and asked, "Are you gay?" And I was like, "Dad, come on, it's just a meme. Subscribe if you wet the bed." Are you gay? Once, when I was in middle school, I had a friend we called the baby, because every night the guy would pee himself and make homemade tamarind in bed while he slept. And every time he came to school, we would cover our noses when he walked by us because, well, it didn't smell good. But he didn't care. He would say, "Why are you covering your noses? It's my essence." Until one day, a humble classmate, he bought him some adult diapers and gave them to him so he wouldn't come to school all dirty anymore. Oh my god, I'm pooping myself. The poop is coming out! Oh, one time, my friend Chichimeca ate like 5 pieces of my dog's kibble because we had made a bet to see who would get the least kills in Call of Duty. And whoever lost had to eat dog food. So I beat him. And Chichimeca didn't want to eat Mickey's dog kibble, but he had to go get some kibble. And when he came back to the room, he put them in his mouth and started chewing them. Honestly, I was dying of laughter. So I asked him, what do they taste like? And he told me, like food of the gods and angels. But then, my little dog Mickey came into the house and Chichimeca said, "Look, he came in to look for his kibble." One time, my little brother stuck a piece of gum to his head because according to him, he was saving it for later. But then he comes to me and says, "Brother, help me, I can't get it off." And since he was 6 years old, I took advantage and told him, "Sorry little guy, we're going to have to make you bald." And he started crying because he didn't want to be bald. In the end, I took it off with cooking oil. Good thing I'm really smart.
Almost 4 years old. I go very slowly. And I go, and I'm exploring. I'm quiet.
One time, when I was on vacation, I ate a chili, and it was a Diablo brand chili at a taco place. I almost died right there because I turned red. I cried, I coughed. It looked like I was being possessed by the spirit of a dragon, but my parents didn't even notice me. They thought I was just acting, just trying to get attention. So I screamed dramatically, like in a Turkish soap opera, "You just don't love me!"
Adoption!
And the whole taco place went silent. Even the taco guy dropped his knife. And out of nowhere, my mom just said, "Oh, come on, son, drink a soda." And there I was, all embarrassed, feeling like the most hated person. One time when I was in middle school, I thought my parents were gonna kill me because Miss Fulgencia had the awful habit of giving us punishment stickers with a sad face every time we didn't answer correctly. But my buddy Huesos, Camaroncin, and I were a sticker factory because we never studied. So one day Miss Fulgencia says, "If you get 20, I'll suspend you." And I already had 18. I was already breaking out in a cold sweat until one day during recess, they caught me selling homework copies and they slapped me with 10 bad behavior stickers all at once. I got suspended for 3 days and my mom, to top it off, made me clean windows all over the neighborhood so I'd stop being so dumb. One more and you're dead. One time, my grandpa Perejilo put out a fire with a sneeze because the neighborhood dumpster was starting to catch fire and everyone was running around with buckets of water, firefighters. It was total chaos. But my grandpa Perejilo just stood in front, took a deep breath, and achoo! A sneeze so powerful that it put out the flames like they were birthday candles. Then we all looked at him
Like he was the avatar controlling the air.
and a kid shouted, "That guy is a human fire extinguisher!" And since that day, in the neighborhood, they don't call the firefighters anymore. They call my grandpa Perejilo, with a bit of lint to make him sneeze. One time when I was home alone at 3 in the morning, the hallway lamp started flickering, like in a horror movie. But then I heard footsteps and a tiny shadow ran by. So I grabbed the broomstick, ready to fight the ghost. I turned on the light and in the end, it wasn't a ghost at all. It was just my cousin Chicharin with a dinosaur mask. And I almost hit him on the head with the broomstick. But now, for revenge, every time I go to his house, I turn off the lights to scare him. Oh my God, Lord, save me! I have the eyes of an engineer, Father! One time, my mom ruined my breakfast because I wanted to eat yogurt with fruit. And I saw there was a container of yogurt in the fridge. And I said, hell yeah, I scored! So I served myself a bowl of fruit, which took me a while to peel. And without realizing it, I started pouring what I thought was yogurt. But as it was coming out, I saw that stuff was black. And that's when I realized it wasn't yogurt, but beans that my mom had stored there. And to top it off, it had been in the fridge for months.
months because it was green and smelled really bad. One time, when I was on vacation, they arrested an American guy at the Barcelo Hotel and took him to jail for hurting some people and wrecking some hotel furniture. My boyfriend and I were just chilling there, waiting for a bus to take us to a room. But there was this dumb American who wanted to leave where we were to go to another part of the hotel. Then a bus came by and the American wanted to get on, but it was the driver's last stop, so he refused to take him. The American got pissed off, kicked the bus, and started peeing in the street in front of everyone. The hotel manager saw him and called the police, so the silly American freaked out and started crying, saying, No, I have money, I give you all my money. But that didn't matter, and they still took him to jail. I'm talking to you from prison. Hey, one time when I was 12 years old, my mom thought I was watching porn on my laptop because I was using headphones at night while I was on it. Because one day she comes up to me and says, Manuelito, why do you use your laptop so much with headphones in the dark? And I was like, well, because I'm watching movies and shows. And she says, okay, son, I trust you. But then 2 days go by and I see my mom telling my dad, that's why I told you not to buy him a laptop, because he's watching pornography. And I went in, entered the room and told them, no! Oh, long live porn! One time my mom, she swore the blender was possessed because in the middle of the night it would turn on by itself and it sounded like someone was screaming inside. Until one day my dad blessed it with water. My grandma made the sign of the cross on it like 9,000 times and my aunt Calabaza even played praise music for it. But after 3 nights of terror, we discovered it wasn't any demon. It was just my uncle Chucho. He would get up sleepwalking at 3 in the morning to make orange juice because according to him, that's when vitamin C is best preserved. I love you, God. I love you, God. I trust in you. Once, when I was a kid, I thought there was a panther spider in the movie theater because I saw a huge shadow walking on the wall right when they turned off the lights. And I screamed, ladies! Then it turned into a Marvel-level apocalypse chaos. Ladies running with popcorn like golden rain. A man threw his jumbo soda like a waterfall of diabetes. Pete's! And a baby started crying like he had a speaker in his mouth. And Tizok was being a real coward. He hid behind the seat like a low-ranking soldier. But in the end, the manager turned on the lights. And it was just a black balloon stuck to the air conditioner. The good thing is, I was 8 years old. Otherwise, I'd have been banned from the theater forever. No, wait! Once, when I was a kid, I did the dumbest thing in the world because of my dad's influence. I used a vacuum cleaner to try to get rid of my cold. I ended up shaking like Minium after being electrocuted. I know it sounds dumb, but it's not really my fault. My dad has this weird way of vacuuming his nose, and I have no idea why. But one day the nozzle sucked his tongue, and my mom said, talk to me, dummy. But my dad replied, I'm fine. And he recited a tongue twister really fast to prove it. But one day I caught a cold, and I did the same stupid thing he did. But the machine pulled my mouth really hard, and when I tried to talk to see if I was okay, I just babbled nonsense. So I panicked, thinking I had messed myself up for good, until I remembered I'm pretty dumb anyway. Plus, I have dyslexia and get tongue-tied when nervous. So now, if I have a runny nose, I use tissues and acetaminophen. One time when I was a kid, all the neighbors in my neighborhood hated me because I had a little Sonic bike and I would always go out in the afternoons to play in the street. But I was always going as fast as I could and I would end up crashing into the gates of the houses because I couldn't control the rocket I was riding. And the neighbors would always hear the crashes I had. They would come out to see what had happened and find me sprawled out on the ground. And those damn jerks, instead of asking me, are you okay, kid? Did you get hurt? They'd just say, hey kid, are you going to break my gate? Go crash somewhere else instead. Fair. One time, a buddy of mine destroyed his family's new TV because of a stupid tantrum. And what his dad did when he saw him was out of this world. He was watching his favorite streamer and had donated 10,000 bits. And since they ignored his greeting, out of nowhere, he got so insanely frustrated from not being heard that he threw the Xbox controller straight at the screen to get a reaction. But the screen shattered into 1,000 pieces. And then his dad came in, furious, yelling, "What did you do, idiot?" And my buddy, crying, just said, "It's because he doesn't pay attention to me." Getting the worst beating of his life, since he also took the donation money without permission. He actually told me that day. His dad hung him upside down from the ceiling for 24 hours so he'd learn his lesson. And me? Why should I care?
One time my physics teacher, who we used to call Olmec Head, let out a huge fart because the rice pudding didn't sit well with him. But instead of owning up to it, the damn teacher...
Because of the damn toxic fart he let out, he preferred to blame the fat kid in the class. And a classmate says, "Yuck, it smells horrible, like a dead rat." And the teacher goes, "Could it be that you're the one farting, Peter?" Meaning my fat classmate. And Peter, totally unhinged, says,
With all due respect, you're a complete idiot. I could even hear from here that you're rotting inside. And the whole class started cracking up. Poor Peter was sent to the principal's office and suspended for 3 days. Once, when I was 10 years old, I tricked all my friends into believing I was drinking super strong coffee. The kind that makes you exaggerate, makes your heart explode, just like adults do. But actually, I had bought some fake toy cups at the fair. They came with a coffee scent and fake liquid that looked real. But one day, a teacher saw me drinking in class and went to tell the principal. And when she arrived, she yelled at me, "Let's see, you little devil!"
What are you drinking?
And when she saw that the cup was empty, she sent me to sweep the yard for being a liar. One time, my girlfriend insulted some drunk guys who were lost looking for a nightclub. We were at Hotel Barcelona, riding around on a bus through the whole hotel. But then, at one stop,
A group of 7 kids got on shouting,
"Altro! Altro! Altro!"
and then they asked us,
"Hey guys, do you know where the club is?"
and we were like,
Yeah, we'll tell you.
So after about 5 minutes, the bus made a stop, and I said, come on, this is it. You guys first." We waited for them to get off, and the bus doors closed. Once they were all off, my girlfriend said,
"Bye, fools!"
and the bus drove away.
Because we actually sent them to the pools. In fact, legend has it, they're still looking for the club. One time my little cousin Chicharrin almost got abducted by aliens. He came running in, pale, shouting that there were Martians on the roof because he saw green lights and heard really weird noises, like from another planet. He said they were invading the neighborhood looking for collagen. So we all grabbed the first thing we could find and went up to the roof in SWAT team mode. And when we got there, we saw it was my uncle Chompira's new drone. And the worst part is, he recorded everything. There's a video of me yelling, "No way, Martians!" The Martians have arrived already.
And they arrived dancing ricacha. Once, when I was 15 years old, I used to pull out the hairs from my butt with my hand. And my mom thought I was secretly keeping a cat. Because sometimes, out of nowhere, I would be in the kitchen, really bored,
Waiting for the microwave to heat up the food. And I would pull out the hairs from my butt with my fingers. And I did the same thing all over the house. Until one day,
My mom started to see hairs scattered on the floor and all over the house. They looked really strange. Then my mom says to me, "You're a stray cat hiding here, aren't you?" And I say, "No, Mom, why?"
And then she told me that she had found some really ugly hairs on the floor and she thought it was a mutant cat with horrible and weird hair. One time my grandma almost exploded and flew through the air because she had found a black cylinder on the sidewalk and she screamed, "Pizza bomb!" And half the neighborhood ran like it was an action movie. But my Uncle Pancho, a retired ex-military, he only lasted 3 months, showed up with a helmet and a bucket of water. And he shouted, "I'll deactivate it!" So everyone took cover. Maximum tension. 5, 4, 3, 2. He picks it up. And it was a speaker. A Bluetooth speaker. Since that day, we call him the Rambo of the block. Lead us not into temptation and deliver us. One time my mom almost broke her whole back because of my dad. Because my dad had put up a hammock in the garden at home. Then he called my mom and said, "Sweetie, come lie down." And my mom comes over, sees the hammock all flimsy and says, "Are you sure about this, skinny?" And my dad goes, yeah, look." And he even swung on it, did tricks with the hammock. And the hammock didn't fall. But then my mom goes, throws herself onto the hammock and it starts to fall. So my dad was like, "Oh wow," and started laughing. But the good thing is the hammock wasn't that high.
And my mom was left with a huge bruise on her back. Otherwise...
One time, at my cousin Tisok's party, a big fight broke out at his birthday party. Even the clown ended up eaten up. Because my uncles, since they were kind of drunk, one of them says, "Yeah, but America is the best team in Mexico." And there were my other uncles who root for Chivas and Cruz Azul. And then my uncle Tinaco says, "Say that again and I'll smash the beer bottle on your head." But I think my uncle did repeat it because out of the corner of my eye, I just saw how they smashed a beer bottle over his head.
On my poor Uncle Rubench's head. But then the clown tried to break us up because they had started fighting. But it got even worse. The brawl broke out because my other uncles got involved. And poor Tizok, his party was completely ruined. One time, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, wanted to hack my YouTube channel because one morning I woke up and checked my email and there was a new one that said business proposal from SOA Energy. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock's energy drink. And I said, wow, what an offer. So I replied to them. But then they asked for my Telegram and I was talking to someone named Sophia. She had a photo that even my girlfriend called ugly and said looked like it was from Pinterest. I didn't care since I wanted the sponsorship. Then she sent me a supposed PDF. But it was actually an exe file from an app with 59 Trojans and the Morris worn. And then I searched on Google Lens for Sophia's supposed photo.
And sure enough, it was a photo taken from Pinterest. Sophia was actually a fat guy in his mom's basement. Once when I was a kid, the water went out at my house because I live in Latam. And here having water is like having gold. So they sent for a water truck to supply the whole neighborhood.
So they filled 3 barrels for each house. And when I went to take a shower, I got into a bucket so that the water that fell could be reused. But it was dirty water, full of soap, and I poured it into the clean water tank. And I thought, wow, I'm so smart. I'm going to tell my mom. And when my mom got home, she looked at me and said, "Do you have a brain?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm really smart. Can't you see my recycling method?" And she just laughed and said, "I don't put you up for adoption because you're handsome, son."
Vianos, they stole my car! Once, on New Year's, I swore that year would be my prime. So I woke up super motivated, put on my gym outfit, and went out running like an Olympic athlete to get more ripped than a cheap superhero. But by minute 13, I was already breathing like an old fridge. And by 15, my body said, "That's as far as we go, son."
So I sat down on the curb, tired, like an electrocuted pig, trying to regain my dignity. Then a 7-year-old lady jogs by, all fresh and straight-backed, without a drop of sweat, and says,
"Cheer up, champ." And that's when I realized that year wasn't the start of my prime. It was the start of my retirement. So I went to get some tacos.
Ya me camino que recorra tu pasado, a todos los cicatrices que batallas por ganar. El tiempo dice quién se quedará a tu lado y quién dará la vuelta para nunca regresar.
Once, when I was 8 years old, I went through the most humiliating moment of my life because my mom forced me to clean the pavement with my tongue in front of my whole block. It happened because one day, the stuck-up popsicle vendor from my block, his car tipped over.
and all the ice cream spilled onto the ground. So instead of helping that jerk, my fat kid brain saw the perfect opportunity to stuff my pockets with treats and run away.
But my mom was watching me from the window. And when I got home, she grabbed me by the ear and dragged me back to teach me a lesson in front of the neighbors. So she made me pick everything up and clean up the melted stuff with my tongue. I went from criminal mastermind to the neighborhood's human mop. And that day, they nicknamed me Dog Tongue. One time, my friend Chupi's got a 10 in math, but it was super boring because she didn't even know the 2 times table. Then, my friends and I realized that she had made a deal with the school to mop and sweep every day after classes. Because the day after the exam, she was walking around like a newborn lamb. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. This girl is blessed by God. I'm going to do the same. But since I didn't even know how to sweep or wring out the mop, they sent me away. And I ended up getting a 5. Wonderful move. One time, when I was 10 years old, my dad thought the devil had gotten into my dragon toys and he threw them all in the trash. Because my dad listens to and watches a lot of news. But sometimes, those media outlets are very stupid and say nonsense. So one morning, he turned on the radio and a man started talking saying, "People, if you love your children, throw away your dragon toys because those creatures belong to Satan." And my dad didn't even think twice. He quickly went, grabbed the black bag, and started throwing away one by one all my little toys. But then, when I came back from school, I saw my toy box and it was empty. And I asked my dad, "Hey, where are my toys?" And he said,
I threw them away because they're from the devil, son! And I started crying because that wasn't true. One time my dad gave me a laptop because it was my birthday. But one time my mom said to me, "Hey Manuelito, can I borrow your laptop?"
And I was really scared to lend it to her because I thought to myself, I hope she doesn't see that I spend all my time playing games, because if she does, she's going to throw it at my head. And then she calls me and says, "Hey, what is this?"
And I saw that my grades were open, and it said, Manuel Antonio's overall average, 9.3. And she says to me, "That's my boy! Just for that, I'm going to buy you a little game." And wow, it's a good thing that God is on my side, because if not, I would have gotten smacked with the laptop. Damn, that was close. One time when my little brother was 3 years old, he pooped in his diaper and got his whole back dirty. But my mom hadn't noticed. So since my little brother was shirtless, she saw him. And my mom said, "Oh, look, what a beautiful birthmark your little brother has on his back. I had never seen it before." So she goes to touch it. But in reality, it wasn't a birthmark at all. It was actually a poop stain. And my mom got her finger dirty for being so curious. And I almost threw up when I saw that. One time when I was 7 years old, I was taking a bath and I almost went blind because shampoo got in my eyes. And honestly, I don't know what the heck they put in that shampoo.
But I felt my life pass by in slow motion, and I was screaming like I was being exorcised. So I ran out of the bathroom with red eyes, looking worse than someone high on marijuana.
Or like my aunt crying while watching her afternoon soap opera. And my mom sees me and asks, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Nothing. I just found out I'm allergic to bathing." And from that day on, I wash myself.
I wash my hair with swimming goggles on because I'm not dumb enough to risk it twice. And always make sure to keep the soup. One time my brother and I were banned from the movie theater for a year because we accidentally caused a massive evacuation. And it all started because I took my 5-year-old little brother to see Lightyear, and the kid had been constipated for 7 days. And right in the middle of the movie, during the quietest part, my brother yells, "It finally came out!" I thought he meant a normal fart, but the smell was so bad. People behind us started coughing and shouting, "It smells like something died." Then a hysterical lady screamed, "Someone brought a dead body! Evacuate!" And in no time, the whole theater ran out. Firefighters and police showed up. And they even closed the theater for 2 hours. So when they checked everything, the manager asked me what happened. And my little brother, all proud, said, "I pooped like crazy." And the manager pointed at the door and said, "You and your Godzilla Jr. are banned!" Since then, at that theater, they know my brother as the poop terrorist. One time when I was at a Chedraui, I broke my collarbone because I was running around. And I tripped on the rock at the entrance of the store. And my mom saw me fall, but she didn't pay any attention because she said I fell in a really funny way and that nothing had happened to me. So we didn't go to the hospital. And they took me around midnight because I was crying from the pain. And the doctor told my parents, "Your son has a broken collarbone." And I was like, "I told you, and you didn't listen to me. Who the hell cares? Cut it out, you piece of crap, worthless bastard. Probably when the doctor saw you being born." One time, when I was 7 years old, I woke up having peed on a new mattress my parents had bought me. Because when I was little, I used to pee the bed a lot. But that day, I was dreaming that I really needed to pee. But in the dream, there was no bathroom where I was. But then, when I woke up around 3 in the morning, I saw and realized it wasn't just a dream. In real life, I had peed myself too. And my parents punished me for wetting the bed and made me sleep on the floor for a week for being dirty. One time, my dad burst my cousin Sardina's eardrum because he tried to get a cockroach out of his ear using a mariachi trumpet. Poor Sardina was crying in terror, and my dad, with a scary calmness, tuned the instrument and swore, "By quantum acoustics, the shockwave will spit out the bug. Don't cry." I was freaking out, watching the old man take a breath like he was about to play in a band. Then, the blow sounded horrible. The cockroach shot out like a bullet, but my cousin ended up walking sideways and with his eyes rolling for 3 days. In the end, he even stopped being so dumb. But now I get scared even when I hear a car horn. One time, when I was little, I thought the Cars and Princess toothpaste was edible because it looked tasty and smelled good. But one day I went to my room to watch a movie and took the toothpaste with me to enjoy it more. My mom saw me and asked, "Where are you taking that toothpaste?" And I told her, to my room, to eat it. And when I said that, she realized why the 10 tubes of toothpaste she had bought had disappeared. And my mom says, you're a little crazy, aren't you? No wonder it burns when you go poop.
And I didn't understand what she was saying. But when she explained it to me, I realized. In fact, I was even about to drink mouthwash because it tasted good too. But one time, my mom was sleeping and I scared her and she yelled at me because it was 4 in the afternoon and she was taking a nap. But I went to wake her up calmly so she could give me 5 pesos for some chips. So I said, Ma, but she didn't answer. Then I tried again saying, Mom, everything's fine. I just need 5 pesos. But nothing. She ignored me. In the end, I touched her arm and said, Ma, wake up. And she got up and started, what? What happened? And in the end, instead of giving me 5 pesos, she gave me 5 knocks on the head for waking her up.
One time my brother drove me crazy over something silly he did because he wanted to be my video editor. And I told him, bro, but please don't ruin my channel. But half an hour later,
He had already put the zoom on my armpits instead of my face and exported everything upside down. So with my left eye about to pop out, I looked at him like, seriously? But all excited, he said, it's looking cool, right? And I told him, thanks for participating, you're fired.
but just when I was about to fire him, my girlfriend showed up. And out of pity, she taught him all the editing techniques. And now he edits better than me. One time, because of me, my body Panza's mother-in-law kicked him out of her house with a broom during his first dinner with his girlfriend. All thanks to my brutal honesty. We were there with the girl's parents, eating elegantly, and Panza started turning green. He started making strange signals I didn't get. His stomach was rumbling loudly, and he kept winking so I'd cover for him. I misunderstood and thought it was a challenge, so I shouted, "Everyone look!" Panza's stomach was swelling up like a toad when you're about to crap yourself. From the shock, my body let out an atomic fart that smelled like a busted sewer pipe. And right then, the lady kicked him out, hitting him for being filthy.
And now they call him the mother-in-law scarer. Oh my god, I'm about to crap myself. One time, I felt like the smartest man in the world.
Because I finished my advanced math exam in 10 minutes. Because it was Monday at 8 in the morning. And the exam was supposed to last about 2 hours.
But I had finished it in just 10 minutes.
And as far as I knew, I had done everything right. But then, 2 days later, when they handed out the results, the teacher goes and says,
I'm going to give the results by roll number. And since I was always the first one, he goes and says, Manuel Aguilar, you got a 1.8. And I just made this face. One time when I was at a party with my cousins Chicharrin and Tizoc, those two geniuses almost made my head explode because they told me, if you shake a Coke, put a couple of Mentos in your mouth, open it quickly and chug it, nothing happens because it's just a controlled reaction.
And I, trusting in their doctorates, did it. But when I did, the Coke exploded like a volcano erupting. My cheeks puffed up like a skinny pig, and Tizoc thought I was going to die. And that idiot Chicharrin almost shit himself laughing. And the worst part is that now they call me the failed experiment.